Hello and welcome back to another episode of Diablo to D&D. My name is David, and today we're going to be going over the creation of Aldur's Watchtower, Arcanna's tricks, and Arctic gear sets. So last week was the introduction of the mechanics for set items, as well as the creation of the angelic raiment set as an example, and in it, I realized that there are 34 different sets, and I really don't want to spend a ton of time doing these because there is a lot to go through. So I am mushing together several sets in a row so that I can get through this a whole lot faster and give you more items to use in your own games. That said, that does mean a lot of the items may or may not be balanced, because I am kind of rushing this, but it is important to keep in mind that all of these are first drafts. They are just the beginning of the creation process. So let's jump right into Aldur's Watchtower. So Aldur's Watchtower is aimed at druids. It's got a pelt, Aldur's Stony Gaze, that can only be worn by druids, but the rest of the sets are actually, the rest of the set is actually pretty good. Now, these base items are pretty, not difficult to find, but they are exceptional, and so that means they have a bit higher rarity. So all of these are rare magic items. Let's start in alphabetical order with Aldur's Advance. They're a set of boots, and when I looked at these, I noticed first off Indestructible, which I did not include, but these are very much aimed at movement. They have fast run walk, maximum stamina, as well as regenerating your stamina a little bit faster. They also have fire resist and damage taken goes to mana. I have no idea how to deal with the damage taken goes to mana, but the other two, I definitely put it in. While wearing these boots, you have resistance to fire damage, and you cannot become exhausted except through a lack of food, water, or rest, and you have advantage on saving throws to resist gaining exhaustion. I think the only thing I could add here is like a faster movement. Maybe dash as a bonus action, maybe increasing your movement speed by 5 or 10 feet, something like that. But I think these by themselves are pretty good. You get resistance to a fairly good damage type, and okay, yeah, the exhaustion doesn't really come up all that often, so maybe I should put in that faster movement. But again, like I said, first draft. Aldur's Deception, however, is aimed at lightning. It is a shadow plate, which means that it is an elite item. And surprise, surprise, druids cannot equip or are not proficient in plate armor. So what I've done is, especially because of those requirements minus 50%, what I've done is allow druids to gain proficiency with this item when they are attuned to this. So they can actually equip the item that I'm making. Of course, it being a fairly expensive or fairly high-level item, it is a +1 armor. It gives resistance to lightning, and I think the one that I like the most is that if you are a druid and your form changes while wearing this armor, you may have it adapt to your new form. The original item has +1 to shapeshifting skills, which by itself is just kind of a mechanic that Diablo has. But I figured I would love to see a set of armor that adapts to the wearer's needs. So if you become a giant octopus, suddenly the armor becomes giant octopus wearing armor, or whatever the phrase is, armor that can be worn by a giant octopus. If you become gaseous through gaseous form, then you can wear the armor. Essentially, your armor class doesn't change because of what you're wearing. So this is a may. You do not have to have this continue if your new form through Wild Shape or some other spell or ability becomes... Well, Wild Shape is the D&D Druid, I should mention, but I mean, I'm kind of mixing them together, so meh. But either way, this is intended to be used by Druids, so I figured why not let them be worn by Druid. Aldur's Rhythm is the mace of the set. It has some additional damage to demons, plus 50% damage to undead, just as a baseline because it's a mace class. It adds a little bit of damage, a little bit of lightning damage, fast attack speed, life stolen, mana stolen, and has sockets. So this is very much aimed at being a mid-class or a mid-game weapon. Those sockets are very, very, very handy. You can put in runes that increase your attack speed, increase your damage, whatever you'd like. So what I've done is, it's a Morning Star, and allows Druids to gain proficiency with this item while they are attuned, because Druids do not have proficiency with martial weapons. It adds some damage because it is a +1 weapon, but it also naturally has those 3 sockets. I did consider trying to work in some kind of damage to demons, maybe some additional lightning damage, but I figured the 3 sockets are enough for it to be customizable to your needs. And I didn't want to weigh it down too terribly much, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with adding just a 1d6 to lightning damage or something like that. Lastly is Aldur's Stony Gaze. It's aimed at cold resist. It's aimed at regeneration. It has some sockets and it has some light radius. So it naturally has 2 sockets. It also gives resistance to cold and dark vision out to 120 feet. Pretty good. The dark vision, by and large, is just kind of meh. But as an action while wearing this helm, you can regain an expended spell slot with a level equal to or less than the number of unique Aldur's Watchtower set items you are attuned to. It was in this moment when I realized that potentially you could have 2 Aldur's Rhythms. You could be dual wielding these maces. They are not like a once per. They're not like an artifact. There's only one, or you could have more than one. So what I said is the number of unique Aldur's Watchtower set items rather than the total number you are attuned to. I'm probably going to have to go back and change that for some of the other sets, I just realized, but I'm going to move on. The set item bonuses, one of the set bonuses grants you plus to Druid skills. So I said, hey, here's some Druid skills for a 2 or more set items. Your +3 or your 3+ items increases your wisdom score, of course, very, very useful for Druids. But also, the entire set increases your stats, +15 to strength, vitality, dexterity, and energy, depending on how many set items you have equipped. So that's 15, 30, and 45. So here, have some wisdom. I considered making it just +1, but I figured 1 capping out at 20, and these are rare items, so make it pretty good. And then, of course, at 4 items, you have immunity to fire, cold, and lightning damage. This is to bring in the all resistances +50 from the 4-piece set bonus, on top of the fire resistance, cold resistance, and lightning resistance from the base set. So overall, I think it's a pretty decent one. It's the first rare set, but, you have to be a druid to get the most out of these. But, somebody like a monk. Actually, you know what? Never mind. Monks would not want this because you can't use the armor, and the Morning Star is not a monk weapon. So, all right, let's move on to Arcanna's Tricks. This one is aimed at sorceresses. This is intended to be a lower level item or low level set. This mixes in a handful of common items. Arcanna's Death Wand is the Death Wand. It's a war staff, so sorceresses can actually use it because they have proficiency with quarterstaves. War staves are just lengths of wood, basically a quarterstaff that's been bound in iron. They're a little thicker, so they're kind of like a mix between a club and a quarterstaff. So in the base item, I've said that you can wield it if you are proficient with quarterstaves or I think great clubs. Yeah, so they can use it. As this is a common item, it doesn't add too much to it. It just allows itself to be used as an arcane focus. Warstaff is two-handed, so you can actually wield the thing as well as cast your spells. Arcanna's Flesh is the armor of the set. It is a light plate, which means that is going to be a half-plate armor in D&D. This one is an uncommon item and allows sorceresses that are attuned to it to gain proficiency with the item, because they don't have armor proficiencies. It gains a +1, it becomes a +1 armor when you have 2 or more items attuned to, or when you are attuned to 2 or more items from the Arcanna's Tricks set. Arcanna's Head was a little interesting because I had no idea what to do with this. So it is a common magical item that once per day you can regain life equal to your proficiency bonus. Now that's not a lot. I originally had roll a hit die and add your constitution, and then I realized that that was just cure wounds. It's just cure wounds, which is a first level spell, which you don't want on a common magical item. So I had a choice between bumping it up to uncommon or nerfing the crap out of it. And I went to nerf the crap out of it. One, because it is a low level item, but also because I needed more common magical items. And I felt that this one was a good candidate. Arcanna's Sign is a little different. This one is very mana focused, very magic focused with regenerate mana and a +15 to mana. So instead of regenerating spell slots like I normally do, this one is actually a quote-unquote amulet of spell storing. This one can hold just a first level spell, but it can hold a ritual spell, that you spent 10 minutes doing, a locate object or detect magic. And if you don't have the time, then you can just say, okay, well, I cast the spell that I've set up as an action. So, put it in now, pick it up later. It's an item of spell storing. As for the set bonuses, the spell detect magic and can cast it as a ritual without expending a spell slot. This is kind of the better chance of finding magical items that Arcanna's Sign has, which is a huge chunk of 50%. 3+ items once per day, you may regain a spell slot of 3rd level or lower. This being a very low level item, maybe it should be 2nd, but I didn't want it scaling with the number of set items you have because I don't really feel comfortable putting a 4th level or the ability to regain a 4th level spell slot on such a low level set. And the 4+ items, or the 4 items, is once per day when you cast a spell that has a casting time of 1 action, you can change it to a bonus action instead. Once per day, this kind of mimics the D&D Sorcerer's Quicken Spell. I think that's what it's called. It's faster cast rate, functionally, which is what the full set grants you, 20% faster cast rate, which at an early level is very, very good. So that is Arcanna's Tricks, very focused at sorcerers, very focused at spellcasters. A warlock might actually find some use in this because there's nothing preventing them from wielding or wearing any of these items. There's nothing that says that, actually, first level spell, you start losing access to first level spell slots at higher levels, so maybe not a warlock. So let's go on to the Arctic gear. Yay. I actually like this one. This one is the first one after the Angelic Raiment that I made. And there's quite a bit to unpack in this one. It's a very cold-focused set. It is the Arctic gear. So, yeah. But this is also another low-level item. Now, this one is kind of in an awkward position because these are the lowest level set items that you can possibly get. I mean, required levels of 2. So very, very, very early game focused. Arcanna's traps required level 15, which is much higher than 2, but it had 2 common magical items. So there's a bit of a discrepancy. Again, first draft. But let's go into this. So first up is the Arctic Binding. This one is a belt, has a high amount of cold resistance, and that means that it gives you resistance to cold. I think that's fair, being an uncommon magical item that requires attunement. Giving a single resistance is pretty darn good. Now, granted, if you have Arctic Binding, the Arctic furs are basically pointless. Kind of, or the first benefit of the Arctic furs is basically pointless, because this one says while you're wearing this armor, you can withstand temperatures as low as negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit with no ill effects. I felt that was kind of, useful. This is a set of body armor, so of course it's going to give you a little bit of protection against cold weather. This does negate the need for cold weather gear. It makes sense. Arctic furs gives some enhanced defense as well as some all resistance, and does have cold resist in its third set item bonus. So mushing these all together, yeah, it's aimed at cold weather exploration, movement, and whatnot, and alongside its temperature mitigation, it also has the possibility of becoming a +1 armor if you have 2 or more items from the Arctic gear set. This is becoming very popular now. Just kind of if you have more items, then your gear upgrades. I think I like that very much, and I will be using it more in the future. Next up is the Arctic Horn. This one is a weapon. Most Diablo 2 weapons that are set items are not good. Just not good. I mean, we saw Aldur's Watch, or Aldur's Rhythm, which is pretty darn good, actually, all things considered. But most of the weapons are more like this one. It's just a short bow. It just has enhanced damage and bonus to attack rating. And then when you have 3 or more items, it has a little bit of cold damage. I didn't really know what to make of this, because being a low-level item, I didn't want to give it a +1 item or make it a +1 item right off the bat, but I had to have something. So what I went with is cold damage you deal with this weapon ignores resistance to cold, which is a very, very powerful ability, except it's a short bow. So any damage you deal, you have to, 1, have the Arctic Horn. And next up, you have to have some other ability that deals cold damage through the weapon, which is a very, very restrictive requirement. I guess there is a spell, I think it's Magic Weapon, or is it Elemental Weapon? Yeah, it's Elemental Weapon, but it's only for non-magical weapons. So you can't even like get the full benefit of this item, because Elemental Weapon it can't affect Arctic Horn because this is a magic item. So that in and of itself, the cold damage you deal with this weapon ignores resistance to cold, is kind of pointless until you get 2 or more items. With 2 or more items, it becomes a +1 weapon, but you can also make the weapon's damage cold instead of piercing, which plays off of that 3 set item bonus. So it's getting bumped down, but also you got to have some kind of utility. Lastly, for the Arctic Mitts, this one gave me so much frustration because I had no clue what to do with this thing. Because it has some bonus to life, has some bonus to attack speed, attack rating, and dexterity. So it's kind of offensive, a little bit of defensive. That bonus to dexterity definitely helps with your accuracy with the Arctic Horn. But it doesn't do much. It does a little bit of some things. And healing doesn't really fit with what the theme of the gear is. So I went in a little bit off direction. While wearing these gauntlets, if a spell or effect that deals cold damage would have additional effects, you don't suffer any effects other than damage. So this is very much kind of aimed at, I think it's Frostbite, or the other cantrips that deal cold damage that like slow you down. I think Ray of Frost, I think it is. You take the cold damage, but you don't suffer any additional effects. So, yeah, I figured it would be something better than nothing. I genuinely had no idea what to do with this because I was like, maybe you can handle cold objects, but that's also kind of the Arctic Furs sort of deal, and yeah. But I ended up in a position where I think this functions. It works well. So for the set bonuses, the 2-set bonus was difficult to come up with. Most of the set bonuses were just kind of not really usable or were already rolled into one of the other items. So in this case, being cold-centered, I gave you an ability to look at a creature and determine whether or not they have resistance or immunity to cold. I think it's good. I mean, it kind of fits with this Arctic gear, kind of exploration sort of thing. You can look at something and go, oh yes, that thing is adapted like me to the cold. So it's a low level thing. It works. Maybe I should bump up the range. Maybe 60 feet. I had considered 60 feet, but nah. At 3+ items, your weapon attacks deal an additional 1d4 cold damage. It's just a little bit, again, fairly low level. I thought about dealing 1d6 to match the Arctic Horn's weapon damage, but I went with 1d4 instead. It's cold damage, and if you have the Arctic Horn, then your cold damage ignores resistance to cold. So it actually works. For the 4-set item effect, you gain immunity to cold. This one kind of overrides that Arctic Binding's resistance to cold, making it full immunity, but I think that is a pretty good effect. And works pretty well because the 4-set bonus in Diablo 2 has cannot be frozen. That mechanic, it makes you immune to the kind of slow effects that come from taking cold damage in Diablo. In Diablo, most cold effects are, I think, all cold effects. Anytime you take damage from cold, it slows your character down. It reduces their attack speed, reduces their movement speed, makes you a little easier to hit as you can't run away. Also, that maximum cold damage 2 per character level, that one kind of got bumped into that 3rd set bonus. So maybe I should make that 1d6. But that is going to be it for today. Let me know what you think. I think these items are pretty well done. I think they're pretty well adapted. I'm not so sure about some pieces of them, but I think that overall these are pretty well made. Let me know what you think, and have fun running these items in your own games. You can find me at XenosFan2, that is XENOZFAN2, on Blue Sky and Reddit. And you can contact the channel directly at Diablo TODND on Blue Sky and YouTube. Thank you much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good whatever.